I love cracking my knuckles and every part of my body just so I know that I'm ready to go. Hello. We're talking about just another headache. Shouldn't swear this early into the video. Another headache with physical media. Just at my mate's place because I like my friends. And it's interesting how I was talking to them about a recent, Blu-ray haul I'd had, a bunch of Blu-rays I got during a sale at JB and whatever, and they were showing me their recent hauls, my mate's birthday, and he got a bunch of imports and a lot of Second Sight, a lot of UK label stuff, some Criterion, actually mostly BFI and Second Sight, but a nice selection, I was comparing with my selection from what I got at JB, and this was Phil, and he was asking, because he was concerned, obviously, about how at least the JB that was closest to them, this being Chadstone, had such a small range now. And because I had mentioned it about a week or so earlier, how the size of what was a 4 to 5 lane aisle setup at JB Chadstone. Chadstone, if you are not aware, is a big shopping centre in Melbourne. I feel like it's the biggest. It might not be the biggest, it might just be the richest. It's literally a class dichotomy. The top layer is all the rich shit. The next layer down is the common folk stuff. It's such a fucking whiplash when you really think about it. You're like, oh, that's where all the rich crappy stuff is, and this is where all the fun stuff is, downstairs, for the common people. Like you and me. Obviously, we're not buying fucking Bulgari jewellery and handbags you gotta line up for 6 hours just to look at. We're not a bunch of prudes. Anyway, I went to Chadstone and went to their JB section because I'm fond of going to JB there, and they had minimized it down to one aisle, a shelf out the back, and which was like World Cinema and Classics, I think it was, and then a few box sets along one of the aisles that was on top of a bunch of CDs. They had replaced it with I think it was a Samsung section, basically just a big mobile phone section, which, in all fairness, that JB houses a lot of stuff. The whole area of the area, it's quite a large store, is all TVs, and then the, I don't know, let's say it's a T section. You go in and you get all your mobile phones and your smart device little knickknacks. It looks like there's a bit of construction going on the left because there's kind of a bit of a mess there. But I think it's because they removed all that stuff and chucked it in the front left, where you'd go to the end of a T zone and you'd have a lineup of Blu-rays and DVDs, and then CDs, vinyl, gaming stuff, counter, and then the other stuff is other mobile crap down to your left. Stuff that I've never looked at because I don't fucking care. E-bikes and shit, Stuff that's just generic crap that'll not sell or will sell and then just won't be popular after a year or two. E-bikes are stupid. Mostly the scooters, let's be fair. And so he was asking, in terms of a level of concern, because that's their local JB, what the fuck are they going to do now, especially if this is a broader range thing, because I'm on a JB Facebook page and much of local physical media is getting more and more depleted. A lot of stores are completely clearing out. Some stores are going through renovations and are like, we may or may not have physical media after this. Some popular ones in Melbourne, you had Paran, which is a Paran or Prayan? I don't know, Paran I think it's pronounced. That was quite a fun store, but then they moved across the street and got rid of all their physical media. They had a huge sale on it for a while and then just gone. Melbourne Central, which is a big hub for physical media, basically the same as Chadstone if it was much, much smaller, and now the physical media is mostly vinyls, a couple rows of CDs, and then 3 rows of 2 or 3 aisles of DVDs and Blu-rays. And I say 2 or 3 aisles, but even that is very, very minuscule. It's not a long-ass aisle of bay after bay after bay like Chadstone has. It's now just a bay. One stack of stuff, 2 on the back, and then some on the sidewall. It's just a tiny little corner out the back where you have to hope that none of the JB staff have to walk past you because that's their entrance to their office and whatever. So that's probably the most obvious visual of physical media in terms of Blu-rays and DVDs, not CDs and vinyls, because that shit is still going like hog wild, especially vinyl. Or vinyl isn't doing well, there's just a lot of it, and because it's so fucking large, it takes up a lot of space. I think that's the mentality for vinyl. It's just expensive as shit. $80 for a vinyl? Get fucked. they've put all this physical media stuff right in the corner. And they had done that for a while. JB and Melbourne Central had kept making it smaller and smaller. It used to be one of my go-to places. I remember about 10 or so years ago when I was really getting into buying more physical media. If I couldn't find something at JB Melbourne Central, I would go across the street to Elizabeth Street, and they would have a store there. And I loved the store on Elizabeth Street. You could walk in one side, go out the other, but it was just like a little basement. It was beautiful. I really liked going there, and they had such a range. They're always the more random shit that you would just love to pick up. And eventually that was disposed of and put into Burke Street. And now Burke Street is the big hub for it, and even that was minimized recently after a renovation. So the city is becoming less of a place for me to buy physical media for JB. If I was to go play music DVD, they've got a bunch of shit. It's just pricey, but they've got a bunch of shit, and it's usually imports. Some local stuff, like boutiques and whatever, but rarely anything unless it's out-of-print DVDs or Blu-rays that you just can't get at JB anymore. Or they've got a really cheap $5 to $10 section, so, they've got some variety. But, Phil mentioned that Play Music, well, he calls it Play DVDs. I call it Play Music because that's just the title, Play Music DVDs. Because that's what you do in the store. You want to play music or you want to play DVDs, you go to that store. It's just, I don't love the name, but it actually kind of makes sense when you think about it. It's everything in the title. Playing music and playing DVDs. Bada bing, bada boom. And he was saying, that's basically, the only alternative to go to now, because they get a lot of their, imported Blu-rays from there. And I'm like, yeah, that's basically all we've got. Once JB falters, and I think it will, it's one of those kind of nihilistic perspectives, which I occasionally just have to have. As someone who loves buying physical media, you tend to notice patterns. You see how much of a demise things are getting and how much local physical media is going out the door. I think it's all interactive distributing or all interactive media. One of the two is the title of the company that basically produces physical media in Australia now. They've got a whole new group doing it because it's becoming too expensive to import physical media and to import Blu-ray discs to package for Australian markets. So even just the big distributor who does them all in Australia now is doing it as cheap as possible, but also as expensive as possible. I say that in regards to, we used to get dual pack sets of Blu-ray and 4Ks, for example, or Blu-ray DVD packs. Now we just get singles. You get a DVD, you get a Blu-ray, you get a 4K, all individuals. The only connective packs is either old repackagings, which rarely ever happens because most of the time it's being just reduced. Oh, this is a 4K Blu-ray pack originally, now it's just a 4K pack. No difference, just no Blu-ray. And if the Blu-ray had the special features, fat chance you'll ever get those special features again unless you're able to find the original 2-pack or just an old Blu-ray. But they've got Steelbooks as well. Steelbooks have Blu-ray and 4K. But everything of that has gone up in price. DVDs probably used to be 10 to 20 bucks and are now 20 to 25. Brand new ones. It depends, because it's always the new release stuff versus new release of old films and new release of new films. New release of old films is a couple dollars cheaper. New release of new films is a couple dollars more expensive. For example, if I was to get a Blu-ray of a film, a brand new film would be $29.98, because for some reason they don't fucking round up. So let's just say $30 for a brand new Blu-ray and $26 for an older film on Blu-ray. It's usually $26, $27. I think it's $26.98, which is also a fucking headache. So it's basically $3 less. 4K discs are basically the same. $36 for a old film, newly remastered, whatever, or a brand new film on 4K is $40. It's still $39.98. Steelbooks now are $60, which is fucked. That used to be $40. Yeah, for 40 or 45, even regular 4Ks would just be 36. I don't think it mattered. I think it was just basic format thing. 4Ks were $36.98 and Steelbooks were $39.98. $3 more and you get maybe better packaging, better artwork, and 2 discs. Now it's just $40 for a 4K and $60 for a Steelbook, and people still went crazy for Nosferatu and fucking bought it. Which is insane to me, because I'm like, why? I waited for a sale to get the standard 4K of Nosferatu. I got it for $30 in the end. But it's still, $30 I'm okay with, but there's no Blu-ray in it. It's just the 4K, but it's still the same special features, and it's still the extended cut and theatrical cut with the Dolby Vision and all that stuff, because it's a 4K. It's the way you'd want to get it. But it's a fucking headache, because I'm seeing all this local stuff just go down the drain. And the thing is, if we're going to be completely realistic, we're the market for this. And we're such a niche thing. Like, it is a niche collecting habit to buy physical media to begin with. A lot of my friends who are at, like, a lot of colleagues or friends of friends just don't buy physical media. They got rid of all their DVDs when streaming came around. They don't need DVDs. They have Netflix and Disney Plus and Binge and Max and Hulu and whatever and whatever and whatever. I don't even know how many of them are Australian anymore. Like, we recently got Max, but Binge is still around. The Binge was meant to have all the stuff that HBO Max had. Now it doesn't. I don't. Who cares? It's stupid. There's too many fucking platforms. We all know that. But most people don't care. They'll just subscribe to all of them. And I'm like, it's arguably cheaper to do that, or at least to select a handful of them than to buy DVDs. But people aren't commonly buying DVDs and Blu-rays anymore. Even DVDs, which are always cheaper, people aren't giving a shit to buy them most of the time anymore. And it's just concerning, obviously. Like, boutiques are doing really well in terms of what they're able to contribute to physical media with, audio commentaries and video essays and written essays. And if you want to go with the fancy stuff like the slipcovers and the hardback sets and the booklets and the art cards and the posters, there's a lot of that stuff that people don't care for and that people don't want. People mostly just want a standard film. They don't want the extra knickknacks. I, as someone who is friends with people who do, write essays, do commentaries, do video essays, I do appreciate that extra stuff. But if I can go without it, sometimes I just will, especially if I don't know the people who worked on it, because I'm just like, maybe I just don't care, maybe I just want to get a standard version. And as much as those are doing really well, at least I assume so, because they're still here, like, there's a lot of startups for boutiques and everything that are existing, which is great. It's wonderful to see it. I've even got friends who are doing a Japanese label. I can't remember what they're called. They're very new. Like, they haven't actually done anything officially, to my knowledge. What are they called? New Wave Video. So, like, there's this one here, New Wave Video, which is a completely new one. And they haven't done their first release yet, but they've at least announced one. And I'm friends with them on Facebook as well. They went to Japan just to interview some people who worked on a different film, which is great. Like, they're doing that thing of they're actually putting in the work and the effort to make a product great. And I love that. I can't wait for their releases. Whatever local releases they do, I will be buying them because I'm really excited to see what they do. And just to know people who do that is great, That's just an extra little tick in my box of understanding the levels of what goes into making physical media, from the people who have to, like, hire out the film, those who are producing the actual Blu-ray, like Josh, who works at Imprint, being the creative guy, the director of the whole fucking studio, figuring out what they want to put on their releases, who works on the releases for, like, interviews and commentaries and essays, and then there's artwork choices, and there's all these different elements that makes these things so wonderful, and that's what I love about the extra little bonuses with physical media. But you look at local markets, at least this is very limited to Australia, but I think everyone went on a fucking crazy spree when, what was it, Walmart or Best Buy, whoever of the two, I think it was Walmart, because I'm pretty sure Best Buy, I can never remember. One of those two. You're in America. You know what it is. One of the two of them got rid of their physical media selection. Everyone went fucking nuts. Is it the end of physical media? It's a start. It's really just that. If a business isn't selling it well, they're not going to sell it after a while. And then I know that there are plenty of people who work at JB, who are on the JB page, saying that they're still selling it. It's still there. There's nothing to panic about. But it's also like, they won't know. It's not up to them to know, realistically. Like, they could work at JB and maybe be in the complete no, but I'm also like, they're not the distributor. They're just people who are selling at a retail store. If the main distributor who's doing these releases of physical media, especially in Australia, are not getting bang for their buck anymore, hence why they're upping the prices and hoping that people buy it, and if people don't buy it, they're not going to sell it anymore, then they're not going to sell it anymore. For them it's a business model. They're trying to keep it alive, but I don't know how much passion they have for it. I don't think that they have passion to begin with, because questionably, because I don't know who to follow, who to talk to about it. You know, like if I was to follow a Facebook page, who would I be following? I don't fucking know. At least with like Imprint and Biovision, I know who to follow there. You know, I know what Facebooks and Instagrams and shit to follow. I know who works at it because I know them because they've watched my videos, which is cool and weird. But it's because I'm a voice of this kind of thing. The advocate for physical media is a guy in his goddamn house, just surrounded by physical media, talking to a camera. Hooray. I don't know, it's one of those things where I can't try to emphasize any detail of this could change, this could get better. Do we need more communication from studios or something? I don't know. The ones who we are getting communication from are the boutiques. Because they're the ones who know that that's their market. The other ones are usually just like, you know, if I'm saying big studios like Disney or Warner Brothers or whatever, they've got their streaming services. Most of the time they don't need a boutique, any kind of Blu-ray releases. I mean, I know Disney still do Blu-ray releases, but they don't do them in Australia. And Warner, for example, I think they still do, but like if I look at their more interesting ones like Warner Archive, they don't get released in Australia. They get released in America. I don't think they get released in the UK anymore. I think they used to. At least they had a premium collection label, which was like just the same thing, just with some art cards, which is pretty. I like those. They're just a standard case. They're much better than the American cases, which are cheap and flimsy. But I don't know. It's just a concern to see how much this is going away. You know, especially just for local people, you know? Like, what if streaming does end up failing because it's just eating itself alive at this point? It's really crazy to watch. And as much as I do enjoy streaming things occasionally, there's so much more joy in fucking having a goddamn disc to put in. I just went to my mate's place and watched one of the things that he got for his birthday because I wanted to watch it as well. I was going to borrow it from them, and they're like, let's just watch it. I'm like, fuck it, let's just watch it. It was a horror film. It was wonderful. And it's just something else, like to have the physical essence in your hands, to go through the special features after the fact, to read any booklets or whatever that are associated. If there's something you don't understand, if there's, you want to kind of get a better inkling of what this actually is telling you, what this piece of media, this piece of history is actually about, you know? And it's nice to have those extra little inserts, because the streaming stuff doesn't have that. But even most basic releases for DVDs and Blu-rays don't really have that anymore, unless you just happen to have a director commentary. Most of the featurettes is basically just behind-the-scenes stuff of actors talking about the characters in the most regular way possible, and there's not a lot of passion behind it. So it might be that physical media isn't exactly dying, but more of becoming so super fucking niche that the only things that will survive outside of maybe some American and UK markets, because I think the Australian market's not going to last, especially in 10 years' time. I don't know if there will be an Australian market. I think it's just going to be boutiques that are going to exist, because they're the ones who, it's their market to make physical media, to put in the effort to get scans, to get the best prints that they possibly can, to give you the best possible representation of this film in its, video and audio sense, its special features, and its overall packaging. Sometimes they can't do that. Sometimes they're not allowed to, given they don't get a license to put in any extra details. They're just given whatever print that they're given. It is what it is, but at the same time they're trying. They're trying to keep history alive, to keep all of this stuff alive. And it's not just numbers. It's not just a business model for them half the time. There is passion put into it. And that's something I love, because when I talked to Josh about Imprint, he was saying, this is like a year ago, he was telling me this, how the one thing that's great about with Vivision and Imprint is that Imprint titles don't always sell well. As much as they're all limited edition, they don't always sell well. The ones that do, sometimes it's like, fuck, it's great that sold really well, that's keeping the shit alive. But what mostly keeps it alive is the Vivision stuff, which ironically is the regular stuff. There's TV shows and like BBC dramas and stuff like that, just shows that are just so your grandparents would watch kind of deal. Not even that. I'm trying to think of shows, but like it was really interesting how he was basically able to say that like one of these seasons of say like a BBC mystery called like Vera or whatever the fuck, like that would sell so well just as its own thing that it would fund like several months of imprints releases or like one really good boutique Blu-ray release, you know? And that's really interesting to know that kind of detail, that stuff that's just for regular people who, oh, I want to watch this whole TV show but it's not on streaming, or I'm too old to use the internet, give me a DVD, I know DVDs, I can use DVDs. You wonder why they're still on DVD for a lot of that stuff. Like, yeah, sure, we got I Dream of Jeannie and fucking Bewitched on Blu-ray, but a lot of the old TV shows are only on DVD because people who watch DVDs are older people, you know, that aren't always streaming because they don't know how to use the technology for it. They've been using DVDs for fucking 30 to 40 years. They know how to use that shit. They just put in a disc, you click play. Fuck, wow, magic, you know? And that stuff sells, and that's great. But that's why I think that, unlike maybe potentially American markets and UK markets, I don't know how well physical media stuff sells in the UK, like standard stuff sells. But obviously they still have Disney, so I think that kind of is enough of a, you know, something, because it's obviously not as expensive to put that stuff in the UK. Unlike, you know, from America, for example, to ship all that stuff over to Australia ain't cheap. And I know I always think of those countries, Australia, UK, and, well, England, whatever, and America, but those are the three countries I know of when it comes to physical media. There's a bunch of, like, Asian countries that sell a fuck ton of physical media, which is great, you know, and occasionally I'll get some releases from them as well, as much as everyone will be any level of concern about anything that's a Chinese release. Sometimes they still do physical media, and sometimes they still support their own fucking industry. Japan supports its own industry, they just don't support international industries, hence why none of their releases have English subtitles. You have to get the Hong Kong releases of a Japanese film or TV show in order to get it with English subtitles, because it also comes with like Mandarin or Cantonese, which is crazy. I like that. I like that I can still buy Japanese films and whatever from Hong Kong. It's just strange that that's how it is. And it's a legit release too, which is even better. But yeah, it's just, if at least foreseeable future-wise, if I'm thinking 10 years in advance, I don't think local markets are going to be selling stuff, and it's just going to be down to second-hand markets, you know, whether you go op shops or, again, Play Music DVD, or you're importing, or it's just boutiques. You know, if boutiques are doing well, then boutiques will remain because you can get them from their websites. People know what they are. Occasional people will stray by at a JB or whatever and pick up the occasional, you know, Umbrella limited edition or a Madman release or an imprint release, which is still good. But the thing is, JB's also buying all that stock and selling it for like $5 cheaper, which also brings to the question of, at least for Australian markets, if JB stops selling physical media, or at least if they stop selling regular physical media, if they only sell boutiques, maybe that'll keep it alive. But if it stops selling it full stop, what do the boutiques do? Because if JB is a big part of their market, what do they do when that's gone? You know, if maybe a quarter or half of their stock goes to JB stores because that's the only fucking local stores you've got, what else do they have? I know there's stuff like Easy DVD and other stores like that, but if they've got no brick and mortar, they're not going to get foot traffic. You get online traffic for something like Easy DVD and occasionally Sanity, which used to have brick and mortar, doesn't exist anymore. I think once if JB stops selling physical media full stop, no boutiques or local, releases or anything, even though it would make sense if they're still doing local releases, but if they don't do any of that, could that also falter the industry as a whole? So it's real positive video today. But yeah, so it's just a curiosity that I keep seeing a lot of people praising and buying and talking about local, like boutique releases. But local releases, as much as people still buy it, seems to be getting more expensive and going away. Like boutiques they kind of are getting more expensive depending on where you're from, but that could just be like import fees and whatever else a certain person in a big country that is got his head so far up his ass that it may be, global fucking problems. But yeah, I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, we're lucky to still have this. As much as we can call it the golden age of physical media and that we are praising physical media for existing, even directors who are saying that it's physical media that keeps movies alive because people would buy DVDs and that would keep the industry alive, and now they're not, so things are going to streaming and it's killing the industry. But a lot of those same directors who are saying that kind of stuff, say Sean Baker, for example, who love Sean Baker, love his films and love his attitude towards this stuff, is working on boutique releases for his films. You know, like Anora, for example, has gotten a Madman release in Australia, which is a kind of boutique. It's not really, it's just a bigger branded label. But then in America, it's a Criterion release. So, you know, you look at The Substance, which did really well, and we got that in Madman in Australia, Mubi in the UK, and I think Mubi in the US. So it's big, it's boutique brands like that. Mubi is now a fucking boutique brand, I guess, because they've got their own packaging and design and whatever. That's becoming a thing. So it might be that the next 10 years could be the biggest influx of boutiques that we've ever seen, but then standard physical media might just die off, you know, or become exceedingly hard to find in certain countries. But I guess we'll see. Let me know your thoughts down below. And that's all. Adios.